Today, we're going to tear down the most powerful Korean engine brought to North America, the 5-liter Tao V8. Now, this came out in 2012 in the Genesis R-spec, and it makes more power than a Gen 1 Coyote, yet it has the same displacement. I'm not trying to get everybody riled up, but these engines are actually quite potent in factory form. 429 horsepower, 376 pound-feet of torque, and they were found in the big EQUUS, that's the large luxury car, which is what this is out of, and it was found in the Genesis R-spec. Why they never put this with a manual transmission behind it in a Genesis coupe, I will never understand. Ever. They had everything to do. Anyway, we're going to tear this engine down. It's supposed to be a bad engine. I don't know what's wrong with it, but that's going to be the goal of today's video. At this point, I've covered several different Hyundai and Kia engine families. I've done Gammas and Lambdas. I've done Thetas. And I've actually done a Tao before. I did the 4.6-liter variant that came out of a Genesis sedan. But this is the very first 5-liter core that I've had the chance to buy. And I actually know some details on it because, thankfully, Kia and Hyundai put the VIN number on the engine, and then I did a Carfax on it. And let's just say the maintenance history on this engine that was reported is slightly less than stellar. There are several 12,000-mile gaps between oil changes, which these engines are kind of notorious for consuming oil. So both of those kind of spell a disaster. That does not mean, however, that every single oil change was reported. Not a lot of places, not every place reports to Carfax or reports the service that is done, and some people change their oil themselves. I don't know how many people that own the most expensive Hyundai vehicle would change their own oil, but I'm sure some people do. So that could be the case here. However, this engine has less than 100,000 miles on it. In fact, this car is still on the road somewhere, and it was last reported with 97,000 miles on it last month. So this has under that. I think if I go by the Carfax history, it has somewhere around 93 or 94,000 miles, which is really premature for any engine to fail. So let's find out what actually happened to it and see how bad the inside of it looks. I also am curious to see how it's built because I've done a Tao before. We did the 4.6, and I want to see what the differences are. One small letdown about this engine is that someone sold the spark plugs. Well, they removed the spark plugs from it and didn't put them back in. So let's see if it turns over. Yeah. Feels okay. I don't hear any weird noises, but that could be Uncle Rodney. Oh. Yeah. That's not good. The next thing I'm going to do is unbolt the intake so we can look down the intake ports. Now we have a couple hoses. Perfect. A couple hoses up here. And I think now we can lift the intake up. I don't think I missed anything. Oh, I need glue to crack the seal. Nope, we're caught on something. I've got a big old gang connector back here. Oh, there's a lot of foam in here. This is just for noise. The GDI injectors are very loud. All right, that can stay. Let's take a look down the intake ports. Well, that's pretty terrible. This is an early GDI engine and less than 100,000. Glad I wasn't hungry. There's some debris and stuff in here. Lots of carbon and oil buildup. That's pretty bad. These cars would definitely benefit from an induction service. I don't see anything like bent or no shards of metal at least. All right, now we're going to remove the high pressure fuel line so that we can get the pumps off. Oh, fuel. And now we'll remove the high pressure fuel pumps. If that's any indicator of what the rest of this engine is going to look like, sludge. Lots of sludge. Yep. So for those that are wondering, the reason this has some blue spray paint on it is it adds about 15 a lot of salvage yards will mark what cores go to what place with spray paint, whether it goes for scrap or gets sold to a core supplier or sold to an engine rebuilder place. They'll mark that with different colors of spray paint. So that's all this is. It was just for the salvage yard's identification. Now we're going to peel off the right hand or passenger side valve cover. I know this comes off. I just don't know how this comes off. Oh God, I got a peek. It looks bad. All right. I hope nobody had barbecue. Oh, wow. I don't know if I have enough gloves for this. Sweet molasses. This is terrible. I don't think they failed to report any of the oil changes. I just don't think it got them. 12,000 miles is too far. This is not what a 100,000 mile engine should look like. Here's a better look at with some light. Ugh, man. This is just a shame. Because even though it was a Korean car, it was still expensive. Cars were still expensive, regardless of who made it. A little bit of wear on the cam lobes there. I can't imagine why. Oh, gosh. This is pretty bad, guys. You know, actually, I think that side was that bad just because of crankcase ventilation, and it wasn't actually lack of maintenance. I'm being facetious. It appears I missed one. Do we think this side's going to be better or worse? Or the same? Oh, it's the same. Bad. It's real bad. Yeah, it's pretty ugly in here. My poor tools tonight. The good news is I don't need a whole lot of them to work on one of these. These are very simple engines to work on. The next thing I'm going to do is pull the variable valve timing solenoids out so we can check for metal. These things have a habit of collecting metal if there's any circulating in the oil. Did I say oil? I meant sludge. Ooh, I might break that.
Yep.
Those may just have to wait till we get the front timing cover out. Let's take that off next. I did get all the bolts right. And there's no place to pry. There's no correct place to pry. There's an incorrect place to pry, which is exactly what we're doing now. Oh, maybe this comes out with the VVT solenoids. I think this water neck is... And now we can get these out. Oh! Yeah, that's not good. So there's a little bit of a glitter party. That is all bearing matter. It's only on that one. I don't think there's any on this one. That one looks clean. But this one, bad. Let's tackle the right hand bank front upper timing cover. That one does not want to come out willingly. And this water neck. So these are cleaner. I don't see any metal on them. There's some debris, but it looks like it's just sludge, like what was inside the timing cover. What's interesting, or will be interesting to see if the bearing came with the bearing material that we found on this here came from the same bank, the bearing bank. Now we're going to work on the coolant housings and then the water pump. Wait, hold on. Now apparently people have gotten upset when I cut rubber hoses. So you guys start buying rubber hoses, I'll stop cutting them. Nobody's going to buy used rubber hoses. I'm just not ready to let go of the piston testing hammer. That's not what I meant. Now we can unbolt the water pump. And here's the water pump. A little bit of corrosion at the seal. It's probably seeping a little bit, but let's see, what year does it say what year this is from? It looks like it's an original part. It's an OEM part. It says metal dine on it. That's kind of a cool name. A little bit of play though. Listen. That's not good. No, I definitely wouldn't reuse this. So I did want to show you guys the inside of the upper timing cover. And aside from the horrendous amount of sludge and oil deposits, it doesn't look bad. If you could just ignore that. If you ignore that, it's not bad. Just don't look at it. Just don't look at it. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove the oil filter. I hope it's here. It is. So this is all around bad. This is the oil that came out of here. This is what the inside... That's not mustard. Look at the metal deposits. That's not gold either. Look how sparkly the oil is. It's like bass boat paint. Let's look at that filter. Yeah, every single pleat. Little chunks of metal. Every single one. We might be able to put that bearing shell back together. While we're down here, I'm going to get the oil cooler and oil filter housing off. Now we're going to get this bracket off real quick. Is that it, or is there more? And now the crank pulley. Let's get the big one. This is kind of tight. I don't like this. Nope, don't like this at all. I got to get the air compressor to charge me up here. I just had to threaten it, that's all. That's a pretty big bolt. Look at that, falls right off. No tool needed, just my hands. Now we're going to start zipping some bolts out of the timing cover. There are a few. Ooh, that was interesting. I've got some bolts that hold the cylinder head to the timing cover. And two more I didn't see before. And you'd think that was it, but you would be incorrect. We actually have a little bit of work to do in the valley here. I'll get this fuel line off. Pull this insulator. There's one 12mm right here. And now I need to unbolt all these coolant pipes. That one was easy. This one though, remember this one was not so much fun last time I did one of these. Maybe it'll come out. I don't actually know if this one needs to come out, but we're going to take it out anyway. Or we're just going to leave it and then wish we should have. Now I can pry on the timing cover a little bit. Yeah. See what else it takes to get this timing cover out. Oh, I think we're almost there. All right, let's see what kind of chocolate's behind this one. Yeah, we expected that. Let's take a look at the entire timing system. It actually doesn't look too bad if you can look past the sludge. Uh-oh. Well, that's unexpected. There's some stuff in there. It's not supposed to be there. Well, this just got a lot worse. I mean, I guess it's better for you guys. I don't really see any timing related failures here though. This all looks to be in pretty crummy shape. I mean, nice shape. The next thing I'm going to do is peel the timing system off, and we're going to start with the timing chain tensioners. Whoa! Whoa! Look out! This one though, I think the sludge is holding that one in. Now I can unbolt the rails. Wow. Looks like these just have a pin that they sit on. And I don't think I can take these off with, I can't get those off with the cylinder heads in place. But let's see if we can get the chains out of the way. Oh, there's one. Well, that one's just gonna have to hang. Ooh, that was under some tension. That could have been dangerous. Probably shouldn't have done it that way. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, so we're just gonna leave them beautiful chains sitting there, and now we can start working on the cylinder heads. First, I'm gonna remove the bridge guide. Now it is time to cram the sludge caps loose. My socket. Need to remove the fuel pump housing. There is a cap of cam behind it. All right, now the 10mm headed bolts. So this uses two different sizes, much like some of the Toyota's engines. It's very similar in design. It has a cam tower, or I don't know what Hyundai calls it, but it has two separate pieces here. It actually is a pretty good design, but it is also, or could also be, another source of leaks. I can zip these loose. Wait a minute. Now we can knock these loose. So let's take a look at the sludge factory. some of these rollers definitely have had some debris run through here, but the journals actually look pretty nice. Yeah, look at that one. Not great. Exhaust ones seem to have fared a little bit better. Well, I said that, but not really. So the caps don't look too bad. They're a little worse than the head, but very usable. Especially considering the amount of sludge in this engine. This is rather surprising. And the camshafts don't look... They don't really look that great, mainly from the rollers. A little bit of damage on the journal. I don't know that that would make these worthless, but I don't know if these have any value by themselves. Yeah, you can see some damage right there. What do you guys think? Now we're going to unbolt the cam tower as such. Ooh, that one hissed at me. Now we can have access to the head bolts. It is now time to crack the head bolts loose. All right, what's behind head number one? Well, something's missing. Oh, well, that's not good. Yeah, no, that's bad. Head gasket looks fine. I wish the rest of this looked fine. Well, I did not expect this, but we must do our scientific test, and it's time to break in the new science hammer because the other one is just here for moral support. I think that one's bad. So this thing was supposed to be a rebuildable engine. No, not really. The whole rod is, well, there's the bottom of it's there. What's interesting is that it doesn't necessarily look like that rod is blued or overheated, but we won't really know until we get that apart. But the cylinder walls are just destroyed. This thing is super chewed up. And then there's metal fragments embedded in the piston's neck and its neighbors. That is not good. And the head definitely shows signs that it was attacked. The piston made contact with the combustion chamber. So I think what probably happened here is that piston traveled too far, hit the cylinder head and shattered, and then it was probably, you know, just barely off idle when this happened. These cylinders, a little bit of damage here. But if you look, there's embedded chunks of aluminum. And this isn't even at the surface of the cylinder head. This is a little bit below. So, yeah, that piston definitely made its presence known. Just like the other side, we'll get this bridge guide out of the way. God, the sludge is terrible. Now we can cramp some stuff off of this side. God, the sludge is just falling on my floor. It's gonna wreck everything. Let's get this fuel pump housing. Back to cramming. Well, the head looks just like the other side. It might be a little worse off as far as the journals are concerned because there's a little bit of wear back here. But similar wear to the rollers. So much sludge. It's disgusting. The caps, pretty similar to the other side, maybe a hair worse. There's definitely been some debris run through here. It's not as bad as we've seen, nowhere near. And the camshafts, they have some wear as well. Pretty moderate at worst. It's relatively minor, I would say. Nothing that would scare me too much if I was fixing this engine, but if I had some nicer ones, I don't know that I'd use these. Now we're going to crack loose the 12mm bolts that hold the cam tower in. I'm going to go ahead and get this engine hanger bracket off too. Now let's crack the right-hand head bolts loose. Ow! It's just excessive. Let's see, what's behind head number 2? Oh, this engine is much worse. That's it's not good. Head gasket, decent. Some science. That was loud. Also bad. Well, this is rough. It's really bad. The good cylinders look good, at the very least. But the bad ones, very, very, very bad. And it doesn't look like I get a single head out of this deal. That is really deformed. That valve's bent. The rest of these don't look too bad. But that cylinder, really bad. Now we can finally strip the timing components off this engine. Look at that. Oh, man. Nice. So the timing guides have a ton of sludge on them. You know it's bad when the timing guides have oil deposits. This one's actually a little damaged. That one's actually got some damage right there on the edge. I'll just kind of carefully set that one there. But these, they're just dirty. There's nothing wrong with these. I didn't even get them in when I dropped them in. So before I go any further, I'd like to mention that I know the upper and lower oil pan have been removed from this engine before. And I know that because some of the bolts are missing. And there's two likely reasons why this happened. Number one is that the engine would not turn all the way over with all the piston nuggets in the crankcase, and they had to get all the torque converter bolts out, and likely someone took it apart to save the torque converter. Another likely scenario is the place that I bought the engine from could have taken it apart to see how bad it was and then put it back together. Now, the latter of that would mean that they intended to sell a really bad engine as rebuildable. I don't believe that as much as I believe that they got it in and they never opened it, and it was already opened. So let's get the lower oil pan off. Oh, it's a platter. So even though this thing's been apart, they left me some gifts. Now there are a couple bolts in here that are unharmed, which would tell me that they kind of threw some stuff back in here. But look at what is left of the pistons. Now we know that there are 2 pistons worth here, or there should be. That's an oil ring. Oil, oil. This is a lot. I'm just gonna, there we are. And you can see the confetti left behind in the pan. We're just gonna leave that in there. We'll get the undamaged stuff out of the way. The rest of this, there's a circlip. I don't see a wrist pin though. Man, that thing is just super deformed. That looked like it held in a piston squirter, which tells me that the block is going to be even more junk than we thought. I don't see any sections of rod in here. This all looks to be aluminum. So I don't think we have the full story here, but this is still quite a lot considering it's been apart. That doesn't even look like part of a piston. That's all piston. You can see there's a valve relief. 1 circlip. This looks like what holds an oil squirter in, and look how deformed that thing is. The rest of this is just confetti. Oh, there looks like another circlip there. There's ringlets, but I don't see any wrist pins or signs of connecting rods. Now we're going to roll this thing over, drop the juices, and see what the... Oh, we're already leaking. That's missing the pan completely. Oh, it's dropping engine parts. Wow. That is really bad. I think we're just going to pull the upper pan in that position because otherwise I'm going to be fishing engine parts out of the engine. All right, we're going to start zipping some bolts out. The pan is already starting to come off. I need to get an extension. Did I miss any? I don't think I did. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can definitely tell you they unbolted a whole bunch of stuff to get this thing to move. That rod cap's loose. The main cap, oh well, the bed plate's loose there. Yeah, someone's had this thing all the way apart. I don't generally like pulling engines apart that someone else has already had apart, but this is the first 5 liter I've had a chance to buy. Well, this is pretty bad. I need to modify this just a little. That was probably not the best decision, but now we can get it out. Well, this took a hit or 50, and hey, look, we got sections of rod. That's a fragment. More junk fell out of this side. There's a bunch of slimy paste engine parts over here. That's rod. Yeah, someone else got to enjoy the piston nugget buffet. So I don't see the wrist pins. Unless, you know what, they probably reinstalled them. That's probably what happened. So there's a few more pieces that came out here. That's probably the largest section of rod we've got. That's also connecting rod. Then there's this goopy, pasty stuff, which is probably what was in the sump when this thing let go. All right, now let's turn this thing the rest of the way upside down. Yeah, not good. So look at the pickup screen. I think it's just loaded with metal. And then look at all the sludge. Just yuck. And then here's where the bomb went off. Just blew this whole section apart. Really deep gouges. I am impressed, though. There's really no signs on the outside that the inside would ever look like this. I mean, there's none. This looks normal on the outside, and then it looks like this on the inside. Now we're going to unbolt the chain tensioner for the oil pump chain. Is that decent? Decent. Let's see, we'll just take this off. Oh, quite easily. And that's gone forever. Look at that little stubby. Now we can unbolt the oil pump. Oh, it's so slimy. All right, let's blast this oil pump apart. Or should I call it a bearing pump at this point? My tools are never going to recover from this. Okay. Okay, 2 oil pumps. Double the pressure, double the fun. All right, let's get this whole thing cleaned up so we can, ooh, it's gritty. See what it looks like. So, that housing, damaged. The sludgy housing, well, I know it's hard to see. Let's see if I can get a better angle on this. It's really damaged. And then we go to this side, more wear and damage. And when we go check these out, this is one of the worst looking pumps we've seen. There's damage literally everywhere. And more importantly, look at the dings and pock marks. I'm not going to say this wouldn't make oil pressure, but it wouldn't be right. There's definitely quite a lot of material, that has gone through here. Enough to leave some of these incredible marks on this. It's wild. There's even still some metal embedded in this thing. Now we're going to work on getting the bed plate unbolted. Most of these bolts are already loose, but not all. I don't have to worry about saving any of these bolts because this thing is scrap. That one's going to require some effort. Let's try to give it some effort. Oh man, it's going to break. Or I'm going to break. That one had not been loosened. All right, now we just got to pop this thing loose. Apparently it doesn't take too much effort. Oh, wow. Well, now we just have some rods and pistons to unbolt. We can lift the crank out. Let's get the rear main seal out of the way. We're going to start by cracking the rods and pistons at the front of the engine loose. Ooh, can I get this out? I think I'm going to need my hammer, and I don't know, my hammer might be on the large side of things. Oh no. Oh, what are we going to do? I think we just made it past the first ring. Just lost the bearing shell. We got to do something different here. I'm going to lightly use the brass drift. I'm going to be very careful with this. We skipped a couple because they're gone. And we're going to move right along to these two. Oh, that was still tight. Okay. Now we're going to make an attempt to turn the crank so I can have access to the final two. Ah, look at that. You can almost get that out by pushing on it. Ooh, that doesn't, it's spinning in the bore. All right, now the crank should just lift right out. Well, let's start with what's left of the rod bearings. It's bad. It's real bad. Now there's some marks and stuff from me knocking these out, and that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at the wear, the damage. These are invisible, but they all are coming apart. Every single shell is not good. These are really bad at the very end. Now the rods and pistons that are here, there's some casualties here. It's still raining engine parts. Look at those oil rings. They are totally caked up, like completely caked. Not the good kind of cake. This is bad kind. Oh, that was something important. First two totally clogged. And there's some damage on the bottom from the war that was waged inside. Skip the two invisible ones. Same deal here. Now these get clogged for a couple different reasons. Number one is low tension rings, bad. They're a lot easier to get clogged. Look how small they are. Smaller openings, easier to clog. Now this one looks like it's got some damage at the crown. Maybe not. But direct injection doesn't help. Super long oil change interval is real bad. And you add all that together and, well, that thing's going to be chugging some oil. Or sludge. It's going to be burning sludge because this thing probably didn't have much oil in it. Yeah, I don't know that I would reuse any of these. They all have marks from impacts, from stuff flying throughout the inside of the engine. But they make good desk ornaments. The main bearings fared a little bit better, as usually is the case with oil starvation. Not always. But the crankshaft, well, this is something else. The journals aren't really too torn up, except for this one, which there is no way that I'm going to be able to get that apart. I don't even, it's futile. It's not going to happen. This is bent this way, which means that even if I got this crack loose, it's going to snap the head off and it's going to be pinned together. I don't have the gumption tonight to get this apart, but that is incredible damage. You can definitely tell it got hot here. It's not quite as indicative as some of the other crankshaft that we've seen. Yeah, there's definitely damage to some of these other journals. It's not good. And here's the inside of the bed plate, and it is scrap. Major collision damage. But that's not even the impressive part. So we're going to start at the back, and then we're going to go to that was not an off-idle failure. Way off idle, perhaps, like, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 RPM. And I have a theory as to why this looks so bad. I'll get into that in the summary, but wow. I'm going to flip this over so we can look at the bores. So the bores have some vertical wear, at least the non-blown up ones, pretty significant. That one is just, it's just gone. Lots of big dents and damage. And then back, to what the rest of these look like. It's really not too terrible. It's not good. Yeah. I bet some debris was flying around and got caught in there in this engine's final moments. This one's by far the worst. And all of these have pretty significant vertical scratches. The Google machine says you should change your oil in your EQUUS every 7,500 to 10,000 miles. Nope, that is too far. I don't care what kind of crazy synthetic oil you use, especially considering the fact that these engines are known for burning oil because of their oil control ring design. You should change your oil on these every 5,000 miles with good oil. No one has ever ruined their engine by changing their engine oil too often. But in this case, the opposite is definitely true. Now, I don't know that this person stuck to the 10,000 mile max or light duty oil change interval. Regardless, the oil change interval that I found in Carfax, whether that has all of them or not, there were several gaps of 12 to 13,000 miles. And then towards the end of the Carfax, it was 6,000, 5,000, 3,000. I think they knew it had a problem, and they were trying to fix it without blowing up their engine. And my intuition tells me that this thing was likely making some sort of noise, and they either had an extended warranty which covered the engine. I don't think these things are under warranty at 90-something thousand miles, but I could be wrong. Either way, with the maintenance history that this thing had, they likely wouldn't have covered it anyhow. And they probably put their foot to the floor so they could get an engine out of it. Now, whether that actually happened or not, I can't tell you. Maybe they were getting on the highway and they were so oblivious that they changed their oil every 12K, they couldn't even hear the engine coming apart until it just flung itself apart. I have to hand it to Hyundai. This engine contained the blast really, really well. There's a lot of engines that have a lot less damage on the inside and a lot more damage on the outside. This one kept it all on the inside. But I feel robbed because someone has more piston nuggets and some wrist pins, and I want to know if the wrist pins survived. I would imagine those wrist pins are installed in another Hyundai product, and they're doing just fine. I would like to think that because that's where most wrist pins end up. Either way, this thing was pretty cool to tear down. I do like these engines. I think that they get an unfair rap because of a lot of their owners. You cannot blame what happened here on the engine design. Now, obviously, oil control rings are one thing, but a lot of modern cars burn oil. It's up to us, the drivers, the owners, to check it and change it periodically. That's what should happen to keep these things on the road. Those cars are not the most expensive cars out there, but they are really nice, and they definitely deserve being looked after. So I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. If you'd like to buy any parts out of this engine, which there's not a lot, some exterior parts and some desk ornaments, or if you want to buy parts out of anything else I've torn down, or out of this green on tan 323 convertible, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our new parts cars, new arrivals every single week. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.